This short presentation introduces the Easy Rules Manager Snort, a software application that helps security professionals in the management of IPS security rules written in the Snort format. Having a layered preventative strategy is widely accepted as the best way to defend against the growing threat of attack to your computer systems. It is no longer deemed acceptable to rely on a single firewall on your perimeter networks. We must incorporate other protection techniques such as antivirus, anti-malware, and intrusion detection and prevention systems. It doesn't just stop at the network layer either. We must bind those systems tightly with good working practices, acceptable use policies, and education at all levels. Like all things in life, this model doesn't come without its problems, and there are many challenges one will have to overcome to make this approach effective. Each component too will have its own inherent problems that need to be overcome. So if we want to solve the top level issues, we need to solve the issues at the grassroots level first. IDAPCOM are committed to developing software that focuses on the smaller tasks in the hope that they will become more manageable and simpler to incorporate into the larger ones. The Easy Rules Manager is part of that commitment and aims to make the operation and deployment of intrusion detection and prevention systems more manageable and hopefully easier to incorporate into a defense in-depth methodology. If we consider an intrusion detection or prevention system, straight out of the box it's probably only 20% effective. This will depend on what preprocessors it has installed and what capabilities are configured and turned on. To increase the operational effectiveness, an IPS needs security rules or signatures, and it would definitely need a human, be it an analyst or an engineer, who will interact with the device. Keeping up to date with the latest threats and writing signatures locally would be near impossible for one person to do, and it is common for the provision of signatures to be outsourced to a security rules supplier. In terms of rule suppliers, there aren't many big organisations to choose from, but it is widely accepted that not one supplier will provide 100% protection with their rule set. It is advised that organisations use multiple feeds to get the most protection for their systems. This presents problem number one. How can organisations manage rule sets from multiple vendors and then combine them alongside any local rules? How can you compare the different rule sets and make decisions on how you want to deploy them on your networks? How do you know which rules are turned on? And how do you know which rules are turned off and why? How can you tell if any of the rules are duplicates or if they've been written for the same vulnerability? For one person, this is a huge task to do, especially when these rule sets are provided as many text files and they're from multiple sources and they're with disparate naming conventions. And what happens when you increase the number of intrusion prevention systems you have to manage? Okay, up to 4 may be manageable for one person, but in organisations you can have tens or even hundreds of devices on their networks. It then becomes a time management problem. New rules will be released by the suppliers before you've managed to update the previous set. Keeping track of which IPS has which version of rules will also become too big a problem. This can potentially leave holes all over the network and can increase the risk of an attack being successful against your systems. One solution may be to increase your manpower and deploy more analysts, but this will only tie up the important personalities and stop them from being able to carry out more role-specific tasks like researching the latest vulnerabilities or penetration testing your key assets. This scenario also lends itself to rule set mismatches, whereby individual analysts will make local changes to their systems, but it won't be recognised by other analysts and deployed on the systems they are committed to. Again, this will leave potential holes in your network. And what happens if your networks are compromised? Who will the CEO call when the organisation name is spread across the front pages of the daily newspapers and being mentioned by all the leading news channels? You guessed it, the managers. Of course, it's the manager's responsibility to keep your network secure, but that does not mean that they are the persons responsible for actually deploying the rules to your IPS. So how is that information shared? How do the managers know who deployed what rule when? How do the managers know whether there was a security rule deployed that should have been capable of stopping the said attack? Was it enabled? If it was disabled, then why was it disabled and when? What forensic information do they have that could help the investigation into the attack and possibly stop the same attack from happening again? To counter some of the problems, many organizations choose to automate part of the process. They will configure the IPS to automatically download security rules direct from the suppliers, with the hope of freeing up manpower and resources. Unfortunately, this is not always the case. The reality is that alerts sent to the event monitoring systems are now increased, and the analysts are left firefighting at the SIM. So why do organizations see so many alerts come into their SIMs when they adopt this model? It typically falls into two categories. Because the rules are deployed direct to the IPS, there's no pre-testing before the rules go live. Any broken or not suitable rules will be deployed to the IPS without review and thus be prone to false positive alerts. Any rules that you may have previously disabled or deleted could potentially be re-enabled without authorization or control. You are totally at the mercy of the rule supplier's decision. The second category is bad rule selection. No one subnetwork is the same, whether it's between different organizations or it's within the electronic perimeter of the same organization. So if you're running different servers and there are different types of traffic on your subnet, it stands to reason that the types of attack your systems are vulnerable to will also be different on each of those subnets. Good practice suggests that you should deploy different rules on each subnet and thus avoid wasting valuable time of your analysts, who will be forced into chasing false positive alerts at the SIM. For example, we should only be deploying rules on the web server's IPS that have been written to detect attacks on web server ports. The same approach should be taken for rules that are written for Linux attacks, if we only have web servers deployed that are hosted on Linux machines. So, I have raised some key points that are problematic when deploying intrusion detection and prevention systems. Let us now look at how the Easy Rules Manager helps to solve those problems. Time and manpower constraints. The Easy Rules Manager is a Windows application written in VB.NET that combines many complex tasks into one place and presents them in an easy-to-use graphical user interface. The time and energy that was spent by your security manpower working with scripts, command line tools, and text files can now be used in a more constructive way. Your analysts can put more effort into researching the latest vulnerabilities and make more informed decisions about patching and rule deployments. Multiple rules vendor supplies. Rules can be downloaded straight into the Easy Rules Manager from different sources. What's more, there are configurable controls that allow you to dictate how you want to import your rules. Do you want to import all rules or only those that have changed since the last import? What do you want to do if you've made a change to a rule and a rule vendor has also made the change to the same rule? The Easy Rules Manager provides you with options to change, so you can make good rule management decisions before you import your new rules. Disparate rule sets across the network. The Easy Rules Manager stores a single copy of your rules in a Microsoft SQL database. The database can be hosted locally on a PC or laptop with the application, or it can be hosted remotely in your network. Putting your rules into a remote database means it can be secured and managed correctly within your organization policy guidelines and by a certified database administrator. Or you can outsource the management to a managed service provider in the cloud. An advantage of having a remote database is that it can be accessed by multiple users running the Easy Rules Manager application. This makes collaboration across your security team easier. For example, the CISO can access the rules to run searches against the latest released CVE numbers without the need to interrupt the analysts who are configuring and deploying the rules to the company sensors. It will also help in the auditing process, whereby the CISO can use the Easy Rules Manager to demonstrate compliance, again without the need to disrupt the operational capability. And of course, you do not need to be in the same locations. Management at the headquarters can configure and set the rules policies, and those rules can be deployed by analysts across the organization, maybe even in different countries. You can also back up your rules in the cloud for disaster recovery if needed. False positives and alerts from bad rule selection. Having your rules stored in a database means that you can easily run queries on your rules against multiple rules properties. You can sort and filter your rules in a granular way to allow you to enable or disable only those rules you need. The Easy Rules Manager deploys rules based on custom groups that you have built or the groups that are provided by the rule vendors. Adding and removing rules from these groups is quick and easy to do with the library viewer interface. Rules can belong to multiple groups, and groups can be deployed on multiple sensors at the same time. So, no more false positives from rules deployed to protect the wrong servers. Rules deployed without testing. The Easy Rules Manager has the option to install a local sensor for testing. It actually installs the Windows version of Snort in IDS mode, which turns the Easy Rules Manager into an IDS in its own right. All local sensor configurations are done via the GUI, which means there's no need to work with text-based rules and configuration files. You can import packet captures into the Rule Manager and view any alerts generated from your rules in the syslog viewer. This means that you can use network traffic that was captured from a subnet that you're going to deploy the rules to. This process can be done totally offline, so there is no need to disrupt live networks before all your new rules have been stress tested first. And finally, no user audit trail. Built into the Rules Manager is an audit log that tracks user events by their Windows logon identity. Using the audit log viewer, the task of reviewing user activity is quick and simple to do. And if you did become victim to an attack, you have the option to carry out forensics based upon historical backups of the database. Furthermore, every table that is viewable from within the application can be exported to a .csv file, so you have another method of taking periodic snapshots of the information for review at a later date. That concludes the introduction to the Easy Rules Manager Snort. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you have found something that prompted some thought or interest. If you would like to hear more about the application, or you'd like to see a technical demonstration, please contact me or any one of my colleagues from the details shown here, and I will be happy to help you further.